Hi everybody, I'm Dr. John Douillard. Welcome to LifeSpa.com, and today I want to talk about allergies and allergy testing. And I gotta say that respectfully, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of allergy testings because I have so many patients that come in and they get an allergy test and they get a list of foods that they should avoid. And then 6 months later they come back and they have another allergy test and they have another whole list of foods that they should avoid. And this continues to go on until we end up keep taking more and more and more foods out of the diet because we have a certain level of reactivity to it. Some of the studies, I wrote an article which is on my website right now at lifespa.com, some of the studies show that some of these tests aren't really that accurate, like the skin prick test, which is sort of like the gold standard of skin prick allergy testing, isn't so accurate. They did one study with 125 kids, and they found out that when they actually gave an actual food challenge to these kids, that 93% of the foods that they were told that they should avoid were allergic to in the skin prick test. There was no reactivity with the actual food challenge, which means that the test was basically telling them they shouldn't eat certain foods because they were reactive to them, had a skin allergy to them, but they really didn't have an allergy to them, if that makes any sense. The skin prick test, again, one study showed that 50-60% of the allergens that were tested were actually people had a skin reaction to them even though they weren't allergic to those foods. So there's a lot of false positives with the skin prick test, so you end up with a whole list of foods that you shouldn't eat. Some of those may be a core allergy. We could definitely have a core allergy, which is something we need to look at. But more importantly, we need to understand that this is a moving target. When you eat something, you could be reactive to it today, but not reactive to it tomorrow. So if you get a test that's done, that's based on the environment, what you ate for dinner, the stress you were under, and you have some reactivity, inflammation as a result of eating that food, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the way it is, every day, 24/7. That we're individual and we have individual requirements, and the digestion changes dramatically throughout the course of the day, definitely weeks and months. So from the Ayurvedic perspective, we want to start to evaluate, what the underlying cause of the underlying digestive issue is. So food allergies come from weak digestion. If you don't break the proteins and the fats down properly, they will go undigested into your intestinal tract. They'll get uptaken into the gut-associated lymphatic tissue, and they'll cause a histamine reaction. That's the science behind them. That's how it works. Now, Ayurveda called that lymph the rasa, which is the beginning of the disease process. So it's important to understand how we either make good rasa, good lymph, or congested lymph. And that starts with running a fine-tooth comb through every aspect of your digestion. Is your stomach making enough acid? Is your liver making enough bile? Is your pancreas making enough enzymes? Is that upper digestion completely coordinated so you're letting foods go properly digested into the intestinal tract so they don't act as irritants, creating inflammation in the gut, irritating the intestinal lining, and then causing lymph congestion, which can cause rashes, which can cause inflammation, can cause holding on to water, bloating, pain, cognitive decline, brain fog. All these things are just drain clogging events, as well as hypersensitivity reactions, whether they be to the food, with a food coma, big belly, bloating, gas, all that, or a skin reaction, another allergic hive type reaction. Those are all lymphatic issues. So in Ayurveda, we really try to identify the underlying weak link. So I've written an ebook, many articles, but also a free ebook on how to troubleshoot and kind of run a fine-tooth comb through your digestive system. We have a whole lymph kit, which gives you different herbs to treat every aspect of your lymphatic system, to really scrub and clean your whole lymphatic system, which is really important. We also have an herb called Aloe, which has quercetin and other vitamin C factors, which are really great for the lymph, but also help to specifically dial down some of that histamine response, which sometimes can be overwhelming. When that thing gets a bee in its bonnet and you have an allergic reaction, it's sometimes hard to turn that off. So that's what the Aloe is for, sort of turn that off. But then you got to ask the question, why did it come? And you got to go upstream, treat the lymphatic system, and make sure we decongest that. heal the intestinal skin so your barrier is really strong, you don't have a leaky gut barrier, and heal the intestinal lining, create a better, healthier microbiome, and then upstream treat the coordinated effort of your stomach making the right amount of acid, your liver making the right amount of bile, and your duodenum and pancreas making the right amount of enzymes. If that's working really well, and you don't eat a lot of junk food and processed food and chemicals exposure and all that, you got a really good shot at bringing this back into balance. So the food testing, it's okay. You might get a couple of foods that work really well for you. I take this out and I feel better. I mean, the whole wheat and dairy thing, and now nuts and seeds and grains and legumes and lectins and nightshades and goitrogens and oxalates, we're told to not eat anything anymore. And everybody's like, wait, we should strengthen the digestive system first and then see what we have a individual issue allergy to before we just take everything out of the diet. Because some of those foods, even though they're harder to digest, they're hormetic. They irritate the intestinal tract just enough to create this thing that we have called gut immunity, which is 70% of our immune response. And if you don't eat those hormetic, irritating foods, wheat, nuts, seeds, grains, beans, the list of them, you won't have the irritation of the stimulation, call it, of your gut to trigger an immune response. And then you have compromised immunity, and the science is in on that. Now we have science showing that people who don't eat wheat have significantly more bad bugs, less good bugs, less killer T cells, your immune response, and 4 times more mercury in your blood if you actually are not eating wheat than if you actually ate wheat, suggesting that we're not detoxifying through the intestinal tract the way we were designed, right? So there's a lot of crazy concepts here of just always going after the symptom. Oh, you're allergic to this, so get that out of your diet, as opposed to treating the host, us, our ability to engage in this environment, which is clearly not perfect and clearly not pure, and we definitely don't live in a bubble. And sometimes the toxicity and the foods irritants can overwhelm us, and we create a histamine inflammatory reaction. So now we got to fix the reason why we had that reaction, and that's what Ayurveda is all about. That's why I write so many articles about digestion and lymph and detoxification, and how to get your body to be resilient to this really crazy environment that we live in. And not to mention, not just physical craziness, but the mental and emotional stress, has a massive impact on our gut. That's a bidirectional pathway, your brain to your gut to your brain. So don't think that, the world we live in, the stress we live in and experience in the world isn't affecting our health as well. But Ayurveda knew that too, and they talked about how we can navigate through this crazy minefield of stress, both physical, mental, and emotional. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. Please read this article, and then take a look at my ebook on troubleshooting your digestion. We have a whole Miracle of Lymph ebook on the whole lymphatic system, and then check out our lymph kit and maybe the Allerest if you're running into allergies. It's, the hay fever season is coming around the corner here, so get ready for that. That's really important. All right, thanks for listening. I'll talk to you all next week.